Time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic Do. I am Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gavin-Stone, and we are your hosts on your journey into the heart of the primordial. We might be your guides too, you never know.
Yeah. Welcome to season 10, episode 1. Okay, so you're divine. Now what?
Aha. Okay. Well, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Well, it's the because everyone, all I'm seeing lately is you're whatever, you're either your God seeing themselves living an experience of yourself, or something like that, or your divine being and having a human experience. So the
Right.
question is, okay, so you're divine. Now what? Because divinities
Yeah.
usually have spheres of influence, responsibilities. So if you're a divine being and you're just hiding yourself in a flesh suit, what now? What are you going to do? What does this tell you? What does it mean? What is it? Not what does it mean? This title is a challenge of, okay, you're divine. So what are you going to do with this power? If you're divine, what are you going to do with this?
Yeah. I mean, let's go there for a second and say, okay, I firmly believe that I am divine in a human body having this earthly experience. If you are somebody who goes with that and who believes that, and I'm not saying I don't, I'm not saying I do right this minute, that's not really
Mm,
necessary. But what I am saying is if you fully go with that, then what are you going to do with that? It behooves you to do
right,
something really significant and important with your life. You have to
right,
make a difference somewhere. You've got to do something divine, right? You've
right.
got to do something epic. Otherwise, what was that? How do you
Well, that's,
reconcile that?
yeah, because it was Lilith who brought it up.
Uh-huh. Well, good point, right?
And then a lot of backing voices going, yes, that's what we're doing. We're throwing out that challenge of, if you're a divinity, what's your thing? So I thought, if nothing else, right? Because it's like, well, what's your responsibility if you're a divinity? Because divinities have responsibilities.
Well, yes, it's a huge
Yeah,
responsibility. And the other thing is, if you are, then so must everybody else
right.
be, right?
Mhm.
So that being the case, I would call on people who have a current agenda against certain groups. You know, whether you think if you're in the US, could be trans, could be
Right.
gay, could be woman, Jewish, pick black,
Yes.
Hispanic, right? If you have an agenda against any of these groups or some other group I haven't thought of, then what about their divinity?
Yeah.
What in your divinity outranks theirs? Does it? Really? How? Why? And if it doesn't, the fuck are you doing? Right?
Right.
Like, really? There's a lot of questions there that need reconciling if you're going to march around with that belief.
Right. Well, that's exactly it, right? Because Lilith looked at it, the way she shared it, my feeling or what I got from it was I don't remember what actress it said it, but I heard the clip used a lot of times, and it's the sheer fucking hubris. I don't know if it was Ellen Mirren who had said it, or what it was.
Sounds like something she would say.
Yeah. So the line, yeah, sheer fucking, and that's what I got from Lilith basically. If you're a divinity, then what the hell are you doing? Like, you're either not, and it's sheer hubris on your behalf to say it, or you're shirking your responsibilities as a divinity. So,
Yeah, I mean, it does require introspection and inquiry. Like, if you're divinity, then what are you here to do with that? And again, look at other people. How can you see them differently if
Right.
we all have or are divine?
Right.
So, okay, and Christians, they love to say we're made in God's image.
Right.
Um, Muslim will say that Allah made every blade of grass,
Right.
everything that exists, and yet there's so much hatred.
Mm.
How can you hate groups and want to wipe them out when you believe that God made every blade of grass?
Right.
These incongruences, to use a very mild word, would question, like, are you having your cake and eating it too? Like, how is
Yeah.
that working? You're divine and nobody else is?
Right.
Or you're divine, but you don't have to do anything with it because you're here, therefore
Right.
it's enough.
Right.
Sounds kind of slack to me.
Right. I mean, and there's also other ways of looking at it because you can say, wait, nope, not yet.
There's a ton of
That is
ways
for
of
later
looking at it
times.
for sure.
What's that?
There's a ton of ways of looking at it for
Yeah.
sure. And I'm just throwing some out there that leap to
Right.
mind.
Yeah. So the big push in the beginning when I got it was then what's your responsibility as a divinity? If you're a divine being, then what is the thing you're looking after? What are you doing? Right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of times you'll hear it and then it's like, okay, well, what are you doing with this? Like you're okay, we're all God's image, we're all part of God, God is in us, whatever. We're all a divinity of some kind. Okay, well, what are we doing with this? Because just declaring that and then going on and doing whatever it is you're doing now does not, smack of divinity.
No, it's slack,
Yeah,
right? It's just, I'm gonna rest on that. I'm
right,
just gonna ride on those coattails and say it's good enough. But is it? I mean, what's the purpose? What did you come for? To read the paper? Like,
right.
there should be something a little more epic in your life than that.
Yeah.
So what is that? And I think of the thing that people like to attribute to their preferred deity.
Mm,
And typically it's the word love. The deity is loving. The deity loves me. The deity's, all about love. Well, okay. They all go through that, right? They all say that,
right.
in spite of the stories to the contrary.
Well, I was gonna say,
But still people will say God is love. Okay. Then again, what are you doing with that? How are you showing up with that? And it keeps coming back to me. There's all these groups that hate so many other people
right,
just based on how they identify.
right.
They don't have to have said or done anything. The fact that they exist and state that they exist is enough to be hated.
Hmm.
Well, um, okay, we're going divine how with this?
Well, yeah, and that's a good one for that one. If you're saying that you are at least a manifestation of a part of the God of love, then where is your love?
Yeah, where is it? And it's clearly not even aimed at yourself because if you love yourself, if you have self-love, right? Let's phrase it
Hmm.
however somebody wants to receive it, then you don't need or want to behave in that way towards others. It's
Right.
not in you to do it.
Yes, that's what I remember. Just for the listeners who our conversation beforehand, I was editing one of her podcasts, and yeah, that's what you guys were talking about, the self-love part.
Right.
Yeah, that's what was sticking out for me.
And I said self-trust is really
Mm.
important. But that was not on a divine topic per se, but just what
No,
do
it
people
wasn't, but
need?
yeah,
What do people need to cultivate in their lives? And you could say self-love, you could say self-trust.
hmm,
And are you able to hear my very noisy dog in the background?
yeah. I heard the
Yeah,
barking. Yeah, I don't know if it'll stick on the recording, but
I'd close the door, but then they'll get louder.
yeah. Well, what is that? God spelled backwards is dog. So
Right? So I have two gods in there who are nearly 8 months old having a punch up.
yeah, so
And one
yeah,
is very vocal about it.
yeah. So part of what I think would, yeah, it's coming. It's not for later. It's just I don't have the right word yet at this very second. So part of why this topic came up is we're talking about magic, right? So whether you're a divinity or not, there is still a responsibility in magic. But going the divinity route is giving you a bigger scope. Because if you're a divinity, then what's your sphere of influence? What's your responsibility in this world?
And how are you connecting to
Right.
your source?
Right.
And newsflash, if you do think that you're God on earth and, your deity incarnate, etc., put one here, then you have to connect to that source directly,
Mm-hmm.
surely. Which
Yeah.
means, why do we have so many people who intercede? In all these religions, you have to go through this person who intercedes for you. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need somebody to do that? You don't need anybody. Why do you need to go to a particular building or a particular location?
Right.
You don't need any of this stuff if you are connecting to your source. What you need is nature, ideally, space if you can't get to nature. I mean, if you're in downtown Brooklyn, you're probably stuck. But even then, can you find a patch of grass somewhere, like a park, something? But you need to go directly to source.
Yeah. Just as an aside, when you said that, it made me think of Bugs Bunny. There was one of the episodes or whatever you call it, because they were in the matinee, right? They weren't played on, I guess, episode. Uh, he ends up avoiding a lot of trouble by pulling up a book, and he's being chased by a bunch of dogs, and then the dogs turn around and run away. And the title of the book was "A Tree Grows in Brooklyn."
Uh-huh.
So they all ran
There
out
you
to
go.
find the tree.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so you hit on something, right? Because one of the questions for this episode is really think about what it means to be divine if you think you are. And it's not just what is your
Absolutely.
responsibility, but it's like, what are you allowing? If you're connected, if you are the divinity, yes, why are you going to church? Yes, why is someone telling you how to act? Yes, why are you doing the thing? Why are you getting up in the morning and not doing the stuff you need to do? Why are you doing X number of things that would make no sense for divinity if you're a divinity? It's the basically asking people who say that to think about what that means. It's not just look at me, great, I'm a divinity. It's no, no, that means something, and it has all kinds of repercussions if you believe it's true. And so far, I don't know how many people are actually living that, like if they say that statement.
Well, I think it falls into the category that unfortunately so many statements do, which is
Right.
an unexamined belief, right? It's
Mm.
just something that somebody else said, and so you're like, yeah, okay, that's good, that's me, and you take it on board, but never actually look at it or examine it to say, so if I accept this, what is my responsibility? What do I now need to do? Because anything you accept, you have to do something with it.
Right.
Even if you're doing identity work and
Mm-hmm.
you accept a new part of life as something you identify with, like, okay, I identify as a runner. Now, if you've been listening to me at all, you know full
Right.
well I don't. Right.
Yeah.
The bear will get a snack. I am not running. But, just go there for a second. I identify as a runner. So what is your responsibility to that identity?
Mm.
Well, you're going to have the shoes. You're going to
Yeah.
put them on and you're going to run even if it's raining or snowing, right? If
Right.
you're a runner, then you're going to do the exercises that help you do that. You are going to behave like a runner.
Right.
So if you are a divinity, are you behaving like one? What does that mean? What do you need to do? What do you need to not do? And first thing
Right.
I'm going to say you need to not do is spend time listening to somebody else telling you how to live your life,
Right.
because that never leads to anything good. They don't even know you. They don't know what you need. They don't know what you want. They don't know what you're here for. Nobody else can tell you what is good for your life.
Right. Yeah. Are the dogs getting really feisty there?
I have these two puppies who are almost 8 months old, and the
Oh,
most
I see.
troublesome of the two, Luna,
Mm.
likes to plague what we call her grandmother, the old dog, who is
Yes.
blind, loves her food, and just wants to be left in peace. And so, of course, these two refuse to do that. They
Absolutely.
don't accept their divinity
Mm.
as. God backwards, as in dog.
Well,
Yes.
maybe they're tricksters.
One of them certainly is. Her name's Luna, and we call her Tick.
Mhm.
Lunatic.
Yes,
Yes. Wasn't intentional when we named her, but it fits.
right. One of the things I'll bring up, not because it's to say that me and Michaela are more awesome than anyone else, but you're allowed to think so if you'd like. But
Sure, knock yourself out.
right. So the first time we started casting spells together, we did a spell and we had to recover for a month because we
Right.
had to invest so much into that spell to make it happen, to unlock, some downloads and stuff for people and make changes that are necessary for the coming times. So as not even as divinities or claiming to be divinities, we're doing work. At least, we're putting in work. So what are you doing as a divinity? Like, not even what are you doing in the mundane world? What are you doing from a magical perspective? Because this is the point of the podcast, and especially the point of this season. What's your magic doing? What are you doing with your magic?
Now is a really good time to work on that,
Right?
and one of the first things, I mean, you and I were both doing it just yesterday,
Yes.
meditation.
Yeah.
And meditation can be done any way that works for you. And it's basically getting into a zone where you can connect to something else, such as the spirit world. But it's not sitting there having no thoughts. And that's a very Western approach
Right.
that somebody totally mistook what meditation was, translated it badly, and screwed a lot of people up. Because if you're alive, you're having thoughts. Your brain, its purpose is to have thoughts. If you're not thinking anything, you're brain dead, right? You're definitely having thoughts. The key is to not follow the thoughts. So if the idea of a shopping list passed through your head while you're sitting there meditating, don't go make the shopping list. Just notice, oh, hey, there's that idea.
Right.
Buy, and give it a seat, give it a location.
Mm.
Somebody in the space we were in yesterday said, puts it in a screensaver.
Yeah.
Somebody else puts it in a fire. Like whatever works for you, just you pick your imagery,
I
but
didn't
you
mention it,
just
but
don't follow it.
yeah. But one of the podcasts I was on, one of the guests before me, so I'd listened to the episode, meditated, and when the thoughts came, she just let them sit with her like they were children who needed attention. The attention they got was just sitting with you. If something was very important, you could focus on it. If it wasn't important, they could just sit with you until they went where they needed to go, or got whatever
Uh-huh.
out of it. So it was a
That's the
very,
thing is,
yeah,
if you let yourself do it, you will come up with how that works for you.
yeah,
I'm very fond of giving things a seat and telling it to shut up.
mm,
But that's kind of my approach to a lot of shadow work and all kinds of things is, yeah, okay, I acknowledge you, now sit down and shut up, or I'll get the duct
right,
tape out, and that's my approach.
yeah,
But somebody else, they're going to go for the fire. I think that's a bit
right,
extreme. I don't know that I want to do that, but you might. Like, what do you want to do with it? You could send it off in a tornado if you want. You could hang them on trees like decorations. Like, sky's the limit. Do what you want to do.
yeah,
But the point is, you just notice it and then you don't follow. You don't keep
right. You
after
don't
that
follow
train
that
of
track. You
thought.
just, yeah.
Yeah, you
I was
just do
gonna,
something with it and
yeah,
then come back to the breath or the mantra or whatever it is you're using. And you can do walking meditation. Vipassana meditation is walking meditation that's you have to be really good at patience. And I know that's kind of a no-brainer with meditation, but
mm,
this is patience in movement.
right,
Because with Vipassana, you have to the idea is that you notice every stage of the step you're taking. So,
right,
what part of your foot is moving, what's lifting up, what's moving forward and going down and then flattening out and roll forward on your toes. Like you really, really focus on all those steps of the steps, if you
right,
will. Um, that takes practice for me to be able to do it. I don't love it. I find
right,
mantras to be really easy because it gives you a focal point, or I'll have an object that I can look at.
right,
I have a very large photo of a forest in Java, and this particular forest has lots of moss hanging down, and there's a kind of fungus that's red, and it looks like fire in the trees. And so this picture has layers for me that I can
Right.
really go in. I can kind of walk through that forest as I'm looking at it. And that for me is an ideal thing to focus on for meditation. Could be a
Right.
candle. You pick things, but whatever helps you meditate, that's like practice number one.
Right. Just to be funny, don't make driving that practice, but
Yeah, probably best not done when driving.
yeah. So yeah, because like certain basic concepts, right? Like, and this is actually something you can do when you're not meditating, so that meditation is easier. Deal with your shit. So that when
Definitely.
it comes to meditation, because as you start to calm down and slow down and start to kind of let go of the outside world, your subconscious mind goes, "Oh, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this." Well, one way to quiet that is to deal with your shit when you're not meditating. And then it won't say to you, "Hey, let's deal with this," because it doesn't have to, because it's dealt with.
Mm. Well, that's for every person who's ever woken up at 3 in the morning and had,
Right.
their brain racing on with all sorts of things to be worried and
Right.
anxious about. And the standard response to that is to get a pen and paper
Mm.
and write it down, whatever it is that's worrying you, and then you'll be able to sleep again. So that could
Right.
work for meditation too. If you're really plagued, like you could start doing that and then check
Right.
your list later, but not during.
Right.
It's a way of getting out of your head and out of the noise.
Hmm. But yeah, just the pathway to that point, you hit the point where your subconscious goes, "We have things to deal with." And so, yeah, and if you do, deal with them because you can always meditate after if it's something that really needs to be dealt with. Because that's how I do it. I go into me when I go into a state of meditation, it's like, okay, the thoughts come up. I go, okay, is this important? It has to be done right now? No, okay. Then we'll deal with it when it's appropriate. And otherwise, you can go and just take a seat somewhere and we're good. And then my brain, so now when I meditate, my subconscious goes, no, it's not important right now. It's nothing that needs to be dealt with. This is more important. So it becomes easier if you deal with the stuff that will come to you, when and well, that's a good general practice, never mind just for meditating, just for your life is to have your shit in order. But
Right,
it's very helpful when you're meditating to not have all these distractions because you didn't deal with stuff that you needed to deal with.
right. And that said, at some point, it's good if you can meditate, if you can tune in
Mm.
to the frequency, even in the middle of noise, even in the
Right.
middle of a crowded environment. You see lots of memes with the jokes. I'm doing Zen love and light, so
Mm.
shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And it's like, aha,
Are
yes,
you?
and you have work to do to get past that. It's funny, but it's also not helpful,
Right.
right? That meditation doesn't mean I can be quiet when everything else is quiet.
Right. You
And
know,
that's really a strength. If you can get to a space of calm in the midst of chaos, you've
yeah.
mastered something important.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because eventually, like I said, right now my subconscious mind just goes, "Oh, it's not important right now. We can't deal with it right now, anyways. So we're just going to do the other part, which is the meditation, which will also bring to something else, because then we can connect to something that might actually find a solution to the problem for us. So then it knows to not prioritize those anymore when I'm going into a meditative state. So they're going to go because now I'm stuck in my head this image of for anyone who's ever watched Kung Fu Panda, you might actually get this image now that I'm saying it. You have Sifu sitting down meditating, and he's like, inner peace. And then you see his ear twitch, and he looks, and he goes, inner peace. And his ear twitches again. He looks, inner peace. His ear twitch. He goes, whoever's making that noise, stop. And it was because he's got big red panda ears, and he's hearing a duck coming. That's to warn them that Tai Lung is coming. But anyway, but I see
Ah,
that when I think about people who can't meditate, because one of his whole storyline was, whereas he was a good martial artist, when he tried to take over the role that Master Oogway had when he passed, but he didn't have that inner center that Oogway had, and so he had to learn it. So part of it was his journey too, and you get to see it quite readily, especially in that scene, because he's now the master of the place, and he's like, oh, what the hell's going on?
right.
Yeah.
master in name, but not quite in
Right.
skill set yet. And yeah, that's that's a good point too, actually, is owning where you are in your journey and
Yeah.
not worrying about it, but just being there. And then what's the next step? And I find sometimes because meditation isn't linear,
Right.
sometimes it'll be easier than others.
Yes.
And if I'm having difficulty, I may find that switching from looking at something and focusing on that to actually using a mantra
Mm.
may help switch it up enough or, change it enough that I can now tap in. So there's different ways to do it. And the best way to do meditation for anybody really is to do it the way it works for you. Like
Right.
literally, just try it out and see what works for you.
Yeah. Plus, at this point in my life, my body loves meditation, so it won't give me all these distractions to begin with. So it's really easy for me to get into a state. So,
Nice.
yeah. Like, and I think I said it before. I was lamenting to one of my nephews. I can't enjoy meditation anymore because every time I sit down to meditate on a problem, I get the answer like right away
Oh,
because my brain just goes into that mode. And it's like,
well,
but
that's
I
cool.
wanted the 20 minutes of just sitting there and zoning out.
That's kind of cool, though. It means you're
Yeah.
tapping into your subconscious really quickly.
Right. Yeah. Well,
It's nice.
that's my big, my goal for this year, or that's my work for this year, is to make a good connection between my conscious and subconscious mind.
I love the way you say that, like it ain't no big thing.
Well, because technically it's not. We have put, see, this is why it's important to the whole remember who you are thing that
Hmm.
we mentioned, because you have layers of distraction in your life that separated you from yourself. And then you spend
This
the
is
rest of
true.
your life, actually from your middle age on, you spend it trying to get back to yourself because you've realized, oh, look all this shit that got in the way of me.
Yeah, but don't you find that that's often where shadow work comes in as
Yeah.
well,
Mhm.
where you've cast things into the shadows or you've left them there
Right.
because, well, I don't want to look at that. I don't like that bit. It's sort of a version of the skeleton in the closet.
Right.
And my thought to that is whenever you find a skeleton in the closet, bring that sucker out, have tea with it, and find out what's going on because there's learning there. That's your progress is sitting in the shadows.
Yeah.
It really is an excellent place to hang out. And you don't want to be there always
No.
because you can get a little stuck in that space. But
Yes.
it's really good to get comfortable being uncomfortable
Hmm.
and just looking at what's there, what do you need to work on? And my rule of thumb is if I can leave my ego sitting in a seat and I don't even need to duct tape it, then we're good to go.
Right.
And I can have a look at what I need to work on without making it mean anything about me, the version of me that is sitting here right now. It doesn't matter for this work.
Right.
It just doesn't matter. What you think about you or what you think this means about you doesn't mean a damn thing. Like that stuff's just getting in the way. What is the work in front of you? That's the
Right.
key.
Yeah. So part of the challenge is, if you're a divinity, what kind of divinity are you? Who are you as a divine person? And then again, what's your sphere of influence in this world? And what should you be working on?
Uh-huh. And really, how are you showing up? Like,
Yeah.
where is your loving kindness? Do you have any?
Mm.
I mean, seriously, do you? And if you don't, it's not to make you feel badly about it. It's just this is a great place to start questioning. Why
Yeah.
not? Is it buried under something? Have you lost it somehow? Because COVID did a number on an awful lot of people.
Yep.
Some did okay with COVID. Personally, I was fine. I did not
Hmm.
have a problem with COVID. I was living in the countryside. I'd got a few acres and a bunch of animals,
Right.
and I didn't have to people. So yeah, you
Right.
bet I was doing just fine. For me, it was not an issue. I know other people really suffered and had a hard time. So if you're one of the ones that had a hard time with that whole shutdown stuff, then what did that do to you? What kind of shadow did it produce that you're now operating from without even realizing it? A lot of that shows up in social difficulties, awkwardness, quickness to jump on the bandwagon because
Mm,
you're not thinking very much or clearly. And all of these can be a product of that time period where we were all shut down. It depends on when it hit you, too. People who are teens then
yes,
or tween, oof, brutal, man.
right.
Really got hammered in the social skills. That was harsh. And you've already got social media and computers and all the rest of it
Hmm.
hammering people's brains, and then you throw COVID in on top. Yeah, you can look for some questionable social skills from a certain group. But if you're divinity, is that enough for you to accept? Or do you need to do something
Well,
about it?
yes, that's exactly it. If we're all the divinities and you specifically who are stating it are the divinity, why is the world the way it is?
Uh-huh. You got to question that kind of divinity. It kind of makes me think of the Old Testament God, really.
Mm,
Yeah, I think I'm going to burn this shit down. And let's flood that and we'll get rid of this. And yeah.
right. But that questioning is very important because the idea is that like we're past the point of performance.
Uh-huh.
Like the first wave has already been the first wave, so they're already going out telling stories and stuff like that and saying whatever it is that needs to be shared. But the second wave, you're going to be, when I'm done casting spells for you guys, you are going to be challenging power. So you, of all people, cannot afford to just sit there and say you're a divinity and then act like that's awesome. You have to live your divinity. You
Yeah,
have to call upon it,
basically.
figure it out, because you're going to be put in those positions where it has to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to figure out there. And people are learning less about the world they live in and less about the spiritual world
Mm,
now than they have done in a very long time. It's not being taught, it's being misrepresented in a lot of places, and people just don't learn things. They don't know. General knowledge is bloody hell, it's dropping at a rapid
right,
pace at us in the US. My God, people used to think that you could ask Americans stuff 10 years ago and it was funny because they didn't know. Try it now, it's
right,
scary as hell. And the schools, they don't teach very well. I know one or two teachers, and I'm absolutely not going to name them, and I'm certain they're not going to be hearing
mm,
this podcast. But when I listen to how they speak, their grammar is incorrect, and they speak, and I hear them correcting children.
mm.
It's like, but you just said that incorrectly. And okay, am I nitpicking? Not really. Not when that person is presenting themselves as an educator.
Well, exactly.
You
That's
kind of need
exactly
to be
it.
able to do the thing that you said you were doing. And if a poor standard simply means the person learning from you is going to believe that their poor standard is correct.
Right.
And that's not fair. So I think people need to step up in whatever area that they work in, whatever thing you do for fun, however you interact with other people. Are you doing that to the best of your ability? And I don't mean winning all the games, not necessarily. What I mean is, are you showing up as the best version of you in that moment? Whatever that is. Because if you're divine, you better be trying.
Right.
And if you're
It's
not
kind of
divine, that's a whole other question. If you are not divine, having a
right.
human experience, then what camp do you fall in? Like, what's the point? Is it one shot and done and we're here by accident?
Mm, yeah.
Did God put you here to experience certain things so that you can be tested and then get sorted by the sorting hat into whichever house you're going to go into? Is that
Yeah.
is that how that's going to work? Like, I have questions. Whatever you think you're in, whatever you think is true for you on this planet, there are follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if there's a God determining whether you're worthy or not, is based on one lifetime sufficient?
Well,
Really?
that's the thing. Yeah. It's funny,
And
right?
and if not, then you're coming back for more. So who decides that?
Right.
And how many and why? I mean, I have my theories, but I want to know what other people's are.
Mm.
These are questions people need to ask themselves, I think, so that you can just be clear on what do you believe? What do you think? And then how are you going to operate as a human being from that place?
Yeah. My favorite question is the divinity even what you think it is?
That's another really good question, right? What do you mean by that? I mean, definitions are important.
Hmm.
I think I mentioned on the podcast before because it had such an effect on me that weekend, the in-person
Mm.
event I did where this woman
Mm.
said, I don't like the word
Yes.
witch. And but she didn't know what her definition was. We finally ended up with, it had come from Disney, but I mean, she didn't realize that immediately.
Right.
We had to dig for it. And then, she was a little embarrassed and ended up buying a human design book from her afterwards. But, yeah, you kind of should be embarrassed because if you're going to go up to another person and tell them that they are wrong or that you don't like
Hmm.
something that they're presenting, but you don't know why,
Right.
you have no right to do that to another person, whether you're divine or not. So get clear on where you're coming from. What is your right? What is your purpose? Is that legit to do? Like, damn. I mean, she did have the grace to look decidedly uncomfortable and somewhat embarrassed, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
fascinated me. She had no thought to ask what my definition was. She had no thought to ask, what does this mean? She was just going to go with this knee-jerk reaction that was unexamined. Well, people, you got to do better than that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of a reminder, like, because to me, like I said, I've said this on the podcast before, to me, when I think of witches or anything like that, I've come from years of looking into it and studying it and checking it out. And then when I go back to what other people are talking about, I'm like, the last time that was even really a definition for witch was like 200 years ago, and you were born 200 years ago. So that story just kept sticking, even though everyone else who studies this have long since come up with something different or had long
Uh-huh.
since viewed it differently.
Well, that's a comparison that immediately leaps to mind is that one falsified study
Mm.
with 8 cases as an example, where the doctor has since been struck off
Mm.
said vaccines cause autism,
Right.
which was wildly irresponsible. He was paid and
Mm.
it's inaccurate. So all of these things, and he's been struck off because of this, because of what he did with this test.
Mm.
The results were not what he said. And yet it's been debunked. He's been taken off the registry. All these things have happened. And you will find that probably 8 out of 10 people will still tell you vaccines
Mm.
cause autism. And they base it on that study, even though they don't know they're basing it on that study.
Right.
It's just because somebody says it often enough doesn't make it true.
I was gonna say that's another big thing in life, especially now you can find it on the internet, that there's a lot of debunked studies that are still being circulated.
Oh yeah. And with studies, always look at, first of all, who paid for it.
Mm.
Number one. Look no further than that in a lot of cases. For example, if you're looking at a study on is beef good for you,
Mm.
and the beef marketing board paid for the study, you don't
Right.
need to look any further. It's not going to say no, is it?
That's right.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have published it. The other thing is if you get past who paid for it and that passes the mark, that passes what you need it to
Mm.
pass, okay, look at the abstract. That's the
Mm.
very first paragraph, and it tells you a sort of summary, if you will, of what the study is about, what they're
Yes.
looking for. And then, if you still like it, go to the end paragraph where they give you the results.
Mm.
If you don't want to read the other 10 pages in between, you don't have to because that's all methodology and it's
Right.
dead boring unless you're a scientist. But if you want to read studies, that's how to read a study. That's like 101. When I was doing research, this was how you pick out the articles that you actually want to cite. And you'll find so many articles don't pass the very first check because of who paid for them.
Right. Well,
It's
what I was gonna
dairy,
say,
good for
yeah.
osteoporosis. Oh, it's fantastic, says the Dairy Marketing Board.
Yeah.
Bullshit, says everybody else.
Yeah. Well, that's the important part, right? Like this has been my beef with people talking about science for a long time. Read the actual study, not because I think I'm better than you or anything like that, because I don't spend my time reading half the studies and all the studies in the world. But what, like, to me, the key to talking about science is saying according to our research, and then you look at what the research actually was, and then
Right,
that's the only thing you have an answer for. You can like
right.
extrapolate,
Well,
which happens a lot, but the study did something very specific, and that's what the answer is for, and that's where the findings tell you. But not everything can then be pushed into that study, you know?
absolutely. Well, they usually tell you what else you need to look at.
Right.
They tell you what the future studies need to look into. So that
Yes.
also helps you know about the limitations. But
Hmm.
the guidelines I just gave for reading a
Yeah.
study tell you whether the thing's worth it or not.
Hmm.
And then if you really want to go through with a fine-tooth comb, knock yourself out, absolutely. But to determine whether it's even worth your time, that's how to look at it. And the very first thing of who paid for it makes a huge difference because the scientists, they're doing their work. But what happens is the companies who are paying for it, once they get to the result stage, will then say, okay, you're done. Give it to
Yeah.
us. We'll do the conclusions,
Hmm.
and they twist it to get the conclusions that they want. And sometimes, if your results aren't the results you're hoping for, you change the question so that the
Yes.
results fit. And this is, I've done my time doing this kind of reading and so on. And so I could tell you this is what happens. This is how science works. Science is not a lie, it's not incorrect. It does get manipulated,
Mm.
right? So even when you're looking at something that says it's science backed, you got to question, not question whether, yeah, well, you're full of shit kind of attitude, but where did that come from?
Right.
And how significant is the science that tested it? Some things use what's called a single case study, which means quite literally they will draw significant conclusions from having looked at one or two people
Right.
under controlled conditions, meaning nothing extra happens or changes direction or anything, but it's all very predictable kind of lab conditions, which none of us live in.
Right.
So, how much is that worth? There's a lot of questions to have with science that you do not from a place of, I don't believe any of it, but more from a place of,
Right.
is this particular one trustworthy? If so, how far?
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly it. Like this is the bane of my existence, if you will, is discussions like that. COVID reminded me just how unscientific most of the people I know are,
Mhm.
even the ones who think they're scientific. It's like, listen, I don't even think my standard of scientificness, if that's a word, is as high because I kind of do like you. I read the beginning and I go, oh, well, that seems like, oh, who read that? But I don't go into the study and look at every little thing they did because one, I don't like to read for that long, especially a topic so dry, you know? Like I have to be really passionate.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's not always necessary
Hmm.
because there's other things to look at. If you understand the methodology that they're writing about, sure, go for it. It's going to be an awful lot of mathematical formulas and what have you that you probably don't follow. But there are other things that you can look at, such as how long did the study
Mm.
take place for? If it's 2 weeks, then you don't have a whole heap of information.
No.
If it's 20 years, you've got a lot more information.
Yeah.
8 people, little bit. 80,000 people. Okay, now I'm going to look at that study and pay more attention. So
Yes.
then what did they do? And there will be paragraphs in there where they say, these things happened that we couldn't control for.
Right.
Or, they will throw the caveats in there, the things that
Hmm.
they weren't prepared for or whatever that could change the direction of the results. There are ways to look at it, and you can increase, not, I wouldn't read a study in a linear fashion from like first word to last word.
Right.
That's going to drive you nuts and be boring as hell. But there's ways to look at it like, does it pass this level? Yes, good. I'll go on to the next level. Does it pass that? Yes, good. I'll go on to the next level. And so you can work through the study kind of going back and forth and looking at different parts of it to see, does it make sense? Like, what was the age group that they were looking at if they're looking at people and not animals?
Right.
Um, what was it all men? Was it all women? Was it
Right.
both? Was it children? Like, were they all disabled or were they all, I don't know, black? Or what, what were the criteria?
Right.
Does it make a difference? So there's a
It
lot of
does.
thought that goes into that, and I have no idea where we went down that rabbit hole. But just to say that when somebody says, go do your research, and,
Hmm.
and they're actually telling you to go Google it, that's people, that is not research. That's just, you're looking it up, but it's not research at that point. Your research is you're the scientist doing all the damn work that we're just talking about now. That's doing your research. We're not typically going to do that. That's why some
Yep.
people are employed that way.
Right. Yeah, because some people have that's how their brains are wired and they can do that for long periods of time.
And they like it.
Yes.
Some people really like doing that, and that's great.
I have some days like that, but that's not my normal default.
Uh-huh. But I think the main point to all of that, because it was
Mm.
definitely a rabbit hole,
Right.
and the main thing is have places where you're going to check. Like, what else do you want to look for? What else do you need to know from the thing you're looking up? Even if you're
Right.
Googling it, okay, what questions are you asking? Are you asking the AIs good questions? Because that's what Google's answering you with. They'll give you back what you ask for. So are you asking the right things?
Right. Be there's a number of words I could use, but be passionately curious.
No, I think that's really
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Or be dedicated to your curiosity either
Yes.
way, but do it. Do the thing.
Like, because I'm
You
not
don't
expecting
look at
anyone
it.
to do like a study in a lab, because one, in lab and out in the world is not the same thing. Like, because I hear people say all the time, well, they're using us like guinea pigs. I'm like, well, yes and no. Like, when you do everything you can in the lab, you know, you have to move to the outside world at some point to figure stuff out. And you have no choice because you don't know how things are going to interact once they get out of the lab.
Exactly. And this you can predict certain things, but nothing's to say you're correct until you see it in action.
Right. You
You
wait till
know,
you think you're safe. As best as to your knowledge, it's safe to let it out into the public.
and you may have missed something because
Right.
it wasn't there in the lab.
Right.
Um, but back centuries ago when I became a nurse,
Mm,
there were different ways to learn to be a nurse in the UK at the time.
mm.
And the one I did, being kind of broken, what have you, was I did the earn as you learn, which is
Right.
basically you work on the ward, then you go and do your schoolwork and you do some tests, then you go back on the ward and you do some schoolwork and you
Mm.
do some tests back on the ward. And so you spend 4 years working your way through the entire hospital. You work in every ward on there at some point and you learn all the time. So then the nurses who went through university started coming onto the wards, and there was
Right.
a world of difference because those nurses had book learning and they could quote you a really good scene. Like they could
Right.
talk you through somebody's heart attack like a freaking champion and give you all the anatomical
Mm.
points and everything. But when somebody actually had a heart attack in front of them, they had no bloody clue what to do because it didn't look like anything in the book.
Right.
People don't. People don't do textbook. If you look at parenting books for people with their firstborn or what have you, I could tell you now, let me save you a ton of time. Your kid is not in there. Use it as a doorstop. It's the most useful thing you can do with that book. Your kid is not what's being written about in that book. There is a bell curve. And at the top of the
Mm.
bell curve is the person these people are writing for. Your kid is somewhere on either side of that, as are 99.9%
Mm.
of kids. So these books aren't written for you. The textbooks about people's health, it's kind of a Frankenstein version, if you will.
Mm.
It's a whole bunch of things coupled together. It's really unusual to see it actually happen to somebody in a textbook way. We used to send a note around the hospital saying, "Hey, we got one." And people would come to find out what was going on because you didn't get textbooks that often,
Hmm.
textbook cases. So
That's
in
good.
life, we don't fit that category. How can something like a religion, a deity, a rule book, which is what I refer to the holy
Hmm.
books as,
Right.
how can they possibly be speaking about you? You're not even on the goddamn bell curve,
Right.
right? So if that's so, then what do you have now? If we take your book away, what have you got? If we take your
Yeah.
building away, what have you got? How about the
Oh,
person interceding for you? If we take them away, what have you got? Ooh, scary.
yeah. But you have yourself.
That's the point. That is exactly what you have.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So what are you doing with that?
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, right? The challenge isn't just to like try to put you in your place when you're saying that. It's the idea is if you're a divinity, then one of the responsibilities of divinity is to be who you are and take responsibility for your stuff. But that's a power because responsibilities come with powers and powers come with responsibilities. They're intertwined.
Yeah. One of the most famous sayings. Great power comes great
Right?
responsibility. But
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. It does. And so if you think you have the one, you definitely have the other.
Yep. And to borrow, I've heard this a few times before, but most recently I've heard it in when they did the Nicolas Cage. They did it Spider Noir. It's Spider-Man Noir, but I'm sure there's like some kind of legal thing that he can't use the whole name. And so he refused to be Spider-Man. And his whole thing was, with no power comes no responsibility. But I've heard that in other
Aha.
places too. But that was the last one I had seen because it was delivered as Nicolas Cage delivers.
Yes. Yes. And he very definitely has a particular way.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of things that we're taught as kids that you took it on, but did you understand the meaning? And did the person teaching you understand the meaning? Example I want to use because it comes to mind is my grandmother was very fond of saying, "The path to hell is
Yeah.
paved with good intentions." And she would say that every time you intended something good, right?
Hmm.
And she kind of spit it out like it was a bad thing. But think about that expression a minute. Let's just assume it's accurate. Path to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, it doesn't mean, to my way of thinking, it doesn't mean that your good intentions are the cause of the path. What it means is when you drop your good intentions, you leave your good intentions, you do not carry them with you, that paves the path.
Right.
So having good intentions isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean it's
Right.
insufficient. When you give up your good intentions, that's where the path comes in. That's my understanding. It was not her understanding. We had a big
Well,
difference on that.
right. And I'm sure if someone decided to track it down, there's probably more to that saying at some point.
Oh, I'm sure there's a second half to it, but my thought of it is okay, if we take that sentence as being worthy of note,
Mm-hmm.
then what does it actually mean?
No, because it's true. Because a lot of people have good intentions, but they don't follow through on their good intentions. So they've dropped them. And yes, and that would be why you've paved the road because the consequence of not sticking through to your good intentions.
Yeah, what did you put in its place? If you don't
Yeah.
have good intentions, then you have bad
Right.
intentions. I don't think you have a void in that particular
No.
space. So, you know, there's so much that you can play with. Like it's kind of like we're a couple of philosophers sitting here having a good time with the conversation.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it,
I mean, and we do, right? Because even though pretty much our job here is to basically just share the questions and share the insights, we're not here to tell anyone what to do. We're just like, this is what we're told is coming. So here's what the suggestions are, or here's what you can do for yourself. What you
there are
choose to do is up
so
to you, right?
there are so many people telling others what to do, and they're all full of shit. And I would argue that they are not full of good intentions, funnily enough. I don't think that's the case at all. I think when somebody is trying to convince you that they are correct and you need to change your mind, typically speaking, what that person is looking for is validation of their opinion.
Mm,
They need you to agree with them so that they feel stronger in the conviction that they're trying to teach you,
yeah.
right? If you agree with the person, they're like, yeah, yeah, see, I'm right, I'm right. Whereas if you keep disagreeing with them, they have a couple of recourses. One is to assume you're an idiot, which is what people typically do.
Mm,
Or two is to question themselves, which is why people assume you're an idiot because they don't want to question themselves.
right.
And that's something we don't do enough questioning. There's not enough. Did I understand that incorrectly? Like, have I ever sort of really looked at that thought? Where did that even come from? Whose is it? I'm repeating it, but wait a minute. Like hopefully that woman that didn't like the word witch,
Right.
hopefully she's changed her mind now, not because I need her to agree with me, but because she learned something that day, which was she was
Well, yeah.
basing her entire opinion and prejudice on Disney.
Yes.
That's not a very good foundation, is it? I mean,
No,
that's a bit questionable.
you know, so this makes me think of, because as we say that, right? Like we say, well, we're not telling you what to do. Part of that still kind of makes me feel like we're using weasel words to try to, but I mean,
Well, maybe if we say not exactly what to do.
or a different way of present. I don't know. My thing though is where I come to my mind in this is that we literally can't tell you because in magic, consent is everything. And so even if we told you what to do, it wouldn't matter. You have to want to do it. So we can really only offer you suggestions because we can't force you to harmonize with the forces you need to harmonize with. We can't,
Mhm.
we can give you instructions and we can say, try this and try that, but only you can connect the way you can connect and only you have that connection. Like I said, there's not too many people who are learning magic who are going to get away with calling the spirit stupid. I do it, but they understand where it's coming from and why it's coming from that way because it's not a reflection on them, it's a reflection on me. And we're in sync that way. And they also taught me in a certain fashion. So I get some slack cut that way also. But the thing is, we literally can't tell you what to do because you have to make that connection yourself. You have to be open to the connection you're trying to connect to.
I
Like,
would further argue that as a divinity, you already know.
right.
You've just covered it up from yourself, which
Yes.
is, I was just describing that with the whole, if you're trying to change somebody else's mind, well, if they're given new information, they either question it, and
Mm-hmm.
that means they may or may not be needing to change their mind,
Right.
or they don't question it and you're a fool,
Right.
right? But that's a decision. That's a decision you make. I'm not going to tell you which one to do. It depends on what kind of progress you want to make and what position you're in. Are you ready for some revelations? Are you ready to discover that not everything you think is true?
Right. The fun thing about magic and really about understanding anything in general is that sometimes you only just figure it out at the right moment.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just when you're put in that position where suddenly your brain goes, this is the piece I needed. I needed my body to be in the position. I needed my body to have that adrenaline. I needed my body to have to look at everything before I could assimilate it. And then now that I'm in it, I can assimilate it. So we're like on I would argue optimal conditions, you're listening to this podcast in a safe place. So you're not put in a situation where you may have to learn to, have that kind of sixth sense that warns you against danger because you're not in a dangerous place while you're listening to this podcast. But if you
Yeah.
were,
Really, for my part, I'm just trying to poke the bear and have you sort of think about things and
okay,
see what's possible. Because
because
if
that's the
we
best.
just,
I'll be honest with you, the way things are going right now, well, okay. So me and Michaela, last episode we recorded that isn't out yet as of this recording, we talked about rage and how you need to hit that rage where you're in the center of the storm. that rage where your adrenaline is kicked in, you're you have all your motivation, but you still have your faculties. They aren't shut off from you. They're actually included. So you've got that rage where you're in the center of it and you can think and you can make choices. You're not just lashing out like an animal or like a crazy person, but you have all the power that comes with anger in a rational mind. And you need your emotions to be that way. I knew that was going to come up in this episode at some point because it's what inspired
And
this season.
you've got to have clarity
Yeah.
in order to use your emotions rather than have your emotions use
Right.
you. And worse, have other people use your
Yes.
emotions to manipulate you. And you see that all the time. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Have a look on social media, turn the
Mm,
sound off, and just look at it. And then ask yourself, what are they trying to make me feel?
mm,
And then have a look at the same advertisement or the same reel or whatever it is you're looking at. Have another look with the sound on and pay attention to the words this time.
right.
What are they trying to make you feel? Where are they taking you? What journey are you on when you listen to these people? And typically it's sensation seeking. It's we've got more drama than the last guy. This
Mm,
is bigger, badder, all the rest of it. They feed off your nervousness, your anxiety, and your fear. And they get more attention that way.
yeah.
And they get paid for the attention they get. So literally look at that and then consider, where are you being sucked in? And YouTube's pretty famous for this, where in a very
Mm,
few videos, it'll have you in a whole different path
right.
than the one you started from, because they just kind of pull you along with, oh, you like that video? Check this one out. It's got
Yeah.
a little extra spice. And then check this one out. We've got, pumpkin with that, whatever it
Yeah.
is. But they pull you on a path,
Right.
and they're paid to do this.
Yes.
So
But
you
it's
can be
funny,
mad
right?
about it if you want,
Yeah.
but it works, and they're paid to do it. So that's not going to change.
Yeah. It's
But how you
interesting,
engage can.
right? Well, because I was going to say, right, because there was a, when did this come out? I'm trying to think. The guy basically went from, he started watching videos on YouTube. It dragged him to the alt-right, and then it dragged him back to the left again because he went so far, he went so far right that he went left
Uh-huh.
from watching videos.
Yeah.
So it's something to consider when you're doing things that it's not even about putting you in one side or the other. It's to keep you out of things enough that you don't react to things.
Well,
You don't take a side unless they need you to take a side,
I mean, you do take a side, you're not really thinking about why.
right?
You're just doing it because it's the popular thing to do, and everybody wants to be the popular kid. And that's just wholly unacceptable to me. I don't give a rat's ass about being the popular kid, which is just as well. But
Mm,
that whole notion of I'm going to hate on this particular group because that's what people do. Well, okay, let's just circle back to the divinity for a
mm,
minute. Tell me about that.
mm.
Like, how do you house both of those things in the same body? I don't see it. Explain it to me like I'm five.
Right.
Because I really don't see that. We really need, I would like more people to focus on being the best version of themselves that they can at least 20% of the time.
Mm,
Aim for something. Nobody's expecting perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. It's a concept. Nobody ever
right.
attains it. But if you can put the effort in at least 20% of the time, it means you're consciously trying 20% of that time.
Yes.
That's probably like 19% more than you're doing now,
Mm.
the average person. So, and I'm not saying I'm a 20%er. I'd like to be. I don't know if I'm there yet. I'll have to figure that out. But, you know,
But it. I'm now inspired to offer a bit of homework. Really look into the divinities you believe in And I'll give this example of why I'm saying this, right? Because if you're thinking, okay, divinities, well, you can go down the road and thinking, okay, well, what about a god of war or a god of fear or a god of, well, darkness? We've already explained darkness so many times on this podcast, especially in the
Loki.
last year. But think about those, and I'm going to use the devil, quote unquote, and God. What people need to remember is the devil's not running around the earth and doing all kinds of shitty things because that's his intention. He was told to do it. God said, do it.
If you're a Christian,
Yeah. But that's what
because
I'm
it's
getting at.
only a
Like,
Christian thing.
right. So even now when you're going on in the world and you're thinking about it, right? You're thinking, okay, the devil's bad, the devil does all kinds of shitty things because he's just shitty. Well, God told him to do it. Very literally, every time you see an act of evil by the devil, scripturally, he's told to do it.
I find the God and devil
Right.
concept interesting. It's also quite new,
Yes.
and it's very, very Christian based.
Mm,
And the notion, it's a bizarre one because if you look at the Bible, I think the devil is attributed with three deaths.
mm,
God, all of whom were deserving in one way or another. They'd all done terrible things.
right.
God, however, wiped out almost the entire planet on more than one occasion because of a hissy fit due to, insufficient adulation or some
Right.
such version. So explain to me, again, like I'm five, how that makes sense. Well,
Right.
and how is the bad guy actually the bad guy? Like, to be sold that as a story and to believe it requires an epic suspension of critical thinking
Mm,
faculties. How can you think critically through that and say, oh yeah, this being that killed three people is really, really bad compared to this one that wiped out nearly everybody
mm.
on a whim, pretty much, and demanded human sacrifice at one point. Abraham's son,
Yes.
like these various things that are coming through, like, I don't know, do we want to look at that a little bit? Does that
Yeah.
does that actually work for you? And Lilith gets demonized?
Mm.
Excuse me.
Well,
And
that's
what does Lilith and the devil have in common? They both said, no, I don't think so.
right.
Ha! So actually standing up for what you believe in and saying, no, I don't think so, is worthy of condemnation. Again, how fucked up do you have to be to go
Well,
with this?
and that's the thing, right? Because you can see the evolution of religion that way. You can see where, like, that's why I want people to look into it. Like, really pick like a deity you like, or even that you're worshiping now, and look into it and look at some history, early stories to the new stories. Like, really check it in. Like, we had talked about Kali. Kali showed up as first, she was a manifestation of Agni, one of his features, or whatever you call it, an aspect of Agni to being her own goddess. And then, depending on what religion got a hold of it or influenced the region, she went through kind of different manifestations of herself, even. So look at what you're looking at because the honest reality is, like we said it before, religions and most of the names of the spirits we work with, there's a story to them, and that's what the spirits use to communicate with you. So find out what those stories are. But there's a good chance the spirit you're working with is going to at some point counter or do something that does not match the story. It's still going to be them, but they're just not going to match the story because story is just the story. Anything someone tells you about someone, you're going to learn different things when you meet that person. Some
Well,
of them are probably not
stories
going to match the story,
stories are told by people,
right?
and people only know what they've learned. So where are their sources, and how diverse are their sources of information? Like, being a bit of a nerdy type,
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, something I enjoyed doing was reading biographies. Yep, seriously nerdy. But I would read the biography of somebody that I thought was really interesting, and I would make a point of reading three very different biographies to very different authors, different reputations, and what have you, so that I would get a more rounded view. Because you read one biography, you have a very flat picture, and it's one person's bias.
Right.
You read two, you start to see, oh, they both say the same thing here, here, and here. Huh, that could well be
Hmm.
accurate. You read a third one, the things that come up in all three, you can pretty reasonably take that as being the point. You know, you can take that as being accuracy about the person. And then the rest, like maybe you get different perspectives of the same story. It's kind of
Right.
cool to do it that way. If you're really interested in the person, like we are talking serious levels of
Yeah.
interest here. But it can be, it can lead you down some interesting paths. It really can. To go into that kind of depth, but also just looking at different viewpoints, right? So when it comes to mythology, what are the different mythologies about the deity you're thinking of? How much can you find out? There aren't too many versions on Inanna, for example,
Right.
otherwise known as Ishtar. But if you look her up, you see the resurrection story happening there very, very clearly. 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years before Jesus.
Hmm.
So that was co-opted. And then, there are other stories, other goddesses that you can look at and say, huh, that's really familiar. Where have I seen that somewhere else? This happens though. Like
Hmm.
everybody except, I believe, the Chinese, and I'd have to check on that, but everyone except the Chinese has an origin story, a creation story.
Hmm.
The
Oh,
raven created,
yeah, yeah.
or don't think the Chinese do, but everybody else does.
It's
And
interesting.
they've also got the flood stories are everywhere too. Epic of Gilgamesh, I believe, is
Yeah.
is one such. So, and I think the Chinese do have flood stories. So, there are some things that are in common in different cultures at different times.
Yes.
Mythology is fascinating when you look at it that way. It's like, oh, that showed up there first, then it went over here, then it showed up
Hmm.
over there. Really interesting stuff. What's the message it's telling you? What's the point, really?
Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting thing because like we could go like several episodes exploring mythology and folklore and what it does versus what people think they mean, right? And we can go like the flood story being the example of there is evidence for a massive flood in the Mediterranean,
Hmm.
but those stories can circulate, and those other places don't need to have had a flood because they can be hearing, stories from travelers and from
All
other
kinds of
regions,
possibilities.
and then it comes into their stories because they like it and it serves a purpose. Like
There's all
it.
kinds of stories. I mean, if you look at the Himalayas, for
Mm,
example, you can go up into Tibet and you find
mm,
coral and you
mm,
find turquoise. Well, where do you
right,
find coral? You find coral in the ocean. You don't find
right.
it up a mountain.
Hmm.
So what does that tell you about somewhere in the history of Tibet, which is awfully high up? It has not always been a sort of desert mountainous terrain.
No, but if you know how geography or geology works, you know that mountains weren't always mountains.
Again, this is the kind of thing that
Yes,
inquiring minds want to
and
know.
so yes, because this is where folklore comes in. Because the whole point of folklore is to try to explain something. The core of the folklore is real. It's not fabricated, but it's an attempt to explain something that have actually been witnessed.
Right. That you might not be able to understand. For
Right?
example, if you go to the temples in, it's going to come to me soon. Anyway, in Egypt, it's not Giza with the pyramids, it's the
Right.
other end, the other end of the Nile. Anyway, the temples. Oh, name will come to me. But there are hieroglyphs in there that are still really well preserved,
Right.
and you see the sun and the moon in the
Right.
sky. And there's a story painted there in the hieroglyphs of how I believe it's the moon dies every morning so that the sun
Mm.
can be reborn.
Right.
So it's a story of life and death, rebirth, love
Right.
story, all these things woven in. Why? Because in ancient Egypt, they have no bloody clue why it's dark now and it's daylight now. Why
Right.
is it hot now and colder now?
Yeah.
Like, what's the story? How do we understand what we're witnessing? well,
Right.
here, this is a pretty good story, and you can get behind that, right? Because
Right.
this is a miraculous thing that you're witnessing every day.
Hmm.
Every day that the sun comes up, as we phrase it, sun's always
Yeah.
there. Every day,
Hmm.
every day that you see sunrise is literally miraculous. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
in the same way as before. Like, how did that happen? Who's doing it? What's doing it? There are questions that need answers. When you have plagues of something
Hmm.
like locusts or swallows or whatever it is, why? What's the phenomena? Well, you're going to have a story to explain that,
Right.
right?
But
The
it's keeping
stories
track
for
of, yeah.
everything.
Yeah. It's interesting because it keeps track of something that's real. It just gives you a story that may not be an accurate reflection of what's happening, but it does catalog something that happened or that's happening.
Exactly. And it puts it in a way that people can
Mm.
remember it, access it, and make some kind of sense out of it so they can get on with their lives.
Right.
And we always try and do that, right? We're always trying to make sense enough that we can continue our lives comfortably. If you have to
Hmm.
question things, it gets uncomfortable. Like right now, we have the patriarchal system
Mm.
showing itself in all its glory, and it's not very pretty, right? Rape Academy, obscene files, all this kind of stuff happening in the US. There's other things that are pretty damn ugly in a bunch of other countries too. So you're seeing this. What are you going to make it mean? And we
Right.
have to make it mean something. And people are spinning stories already. There's the reflecting pool,
Oh yeah, the reflecting
pool,
pool. Yeah.
whatever it is. Oh, it's an Antifa conspiracy.
Hmm.
They've arrested people. Like, oh my God, you have to wonder how stupid do you have to be? But yet, throughout history, people have been stupid enough, and apparently, we haven't progressed beyond that point. People are still stupid enough that the reflecting pool. I never remember which it is.
The
That
reflecting pool. Yeah.
bloody long pool.
Yeah.
It's growing some epic algae right now.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because some cowboys kind of put that thing together.
Mm.
Why? Because they were who's buddy.
Mm.
But the story cataloging a very real event is, oh, this other group
Mm.
sabotaged it and
Yeah. They
made it
poured stuff in
bad.
the water, and
They
I've
put
heard
stuff in
many
the
stories so far. Yeah.
water, they gashed the lining, they
Hmm.
did this, they did that. Nobody, of course, has witnessed any of this, but that's beside the point. It's exactly the same thing happening again. Mythology is being
Hmm.
created right now. We're seeing it happen. You read it in the newspapers, and there are enough idiots that are believing it to be categorical
Yeah.
rather than an explanation for something that the people who are actually responsible for they don't want to explain it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So we always try and explain stuff so
Mm.
that we can swallow the story and carry on.
Mm.
So, that's throughout history. I
Yeah.
prefer mythology personally. I think it's more fun than the stuff we've got going on right now. But maybe that's because we're here in real time. If the planet's still on its axis in 1,000 years, people will be looking back at this period and saying, "Can you imagine how rat ass stupid they were?"
Well, because think about it, right? When we think back on that Pope, what does he call her? Pope Joan? She was disguised as a man, got into being a pope, but she was actually a woman. And at some point, apparently, she got pregnant too. But
Uh-huh.
but we think back on that and we're like, how were you guys that stupid? Like, seriously, you know, how did you not notice this wasn't a man? Like, maybe she had very mannish features. I don't know, but apparently, she's attractive enough to have sex with someone. So,
But there are many questions about
yeah,
all the popes, actually.
yeah,
And then you look at the connections with the Borgias, etc.
yeah.
But th-
Well,
there's a there's a lot going on. There's a lot.
there's a lot of stuff questionable about the whole pope, that whole thing.
Yeah.
The What was it? The Borgias. Who else was there? I can't think of their name there. Italian family.
As they would be.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's essentially. My theory is that basically it's all just basically the mafia at this point. But
Well, yeah, yeah, why not? I mean, it makes sense.
Well,
Frankly, I
because
think the
the family
mafia.
I'm thinking about were basically heavy into organized crime. So, and when they got into the papacy, that was something. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and typically I'm getting royally distracted by dogs
Yeah.
here, so
Yeah.
I'll have to leave that thread where it went.
All right. But I think pretty much, okay. All right. Puppy paws.
Yeah, I just want to mention, Danielle, you are so wonderfully patient with my puppy issues this end because there's often depends on where I'm recording for the listener. I'm not always in the space I'm in right now, but when I'm in this space, I have six dogs and five cats, all of whom decide to plague me at different times. And the loudest part is when they decide to plague each other.
Yes.
So we get pauses in here every now
Which
and
people
then.
may or may not have heard at the beginning. I don't know if it'll show up in the recording, but
Yeah. So it kind of happens. It's how my day rolls.
right. So yeah. So the divinity thing, right? Because that's pretty much where we were coming back to. And
Divinity is always a good place to come back to.
right, there's a lot to consider. Like even if you don't want it, even if after listening to this episode, maybe you think that expression of, we're all, either all God or whatever, or we're all some kind of divinity. Maybe you don't think that way anymore. Maybe you're like, oh, this is more complicated than I thought it was now that I'm listening. Doesn't matter. You should still look into it because especially if you're in the second wave, you need to deal with this stuff. The first wave people, it's always going to help you. Well, you should still do it. Anyone should still do it. It doesn't matter because it's going to be a requirement of going forward because you need to, because, um, how to word that? Even if you don't want to look at the divinity thing, you're listening to this podcast because you're interested in magic and spirituality. And you still need to answer yourself that question, even if you're not going to be doing anything fantastic. You still need to answer that question because you're in the spiritual path. What is a divinity? What is this thing I'm looking at? Or maybe if I have a religion that I'm worshiping, or if I'm doing magic that I'm calling upon, like what is that? Because that needs to be understood now. For those of you who are going to do stuff and really want to do stuff, I'm going to also word this because we've already brought it up. 2026 may not be your year for magic, and maybe just work on yourself if it's not your year for magic because it's not really a time for half-ass magic. The next little while is not half-ass magic time.
I think also, just being open to possibility
Right.
is a great path if you haven't decided yet on
Right.
how you want to do things. Because stuff will show up for you when
Hmm.
it's your time for it to show up. And it's amazing how it happens. Like I recently had this thing, Daniel's gonna laugh. I haven't told you about this exactly
Okay.
yet, but I'm now studying um gemology,
Oh, nice.
healing with crystals, and facilitation. So this will be teaching others to do this when I've
Mm.
eventually finished this path
Right.
that I've launched myself on. Now, this path kind of tripped me up, if you will. It came in front of me a number of times over a month, and then it really kind of slapped me up the head. Within like 6 hours of me needing to make a decision on it, I couldn't ignore it.
Right.
I had to make a decision on it. And it was something that only at that point did I realize, wait a minute, I've been seeing this for a month now. It keeps coming in front of me. It's like a cat running across your path or something.
Right.
It just keeps coming up. Let me have a look and see what this thing is. And it was coming up in different places. That's the thing. It's not just
Right.
like, oh, I keep seeing this advertisement, therefore it must be for me. No, 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 no. This was coming in a bunch of different places, and it came from a source I was familiar with, but had not had contact with in about 4 years. So I'm like, why am I getting this now? Like, how is this happening? What is going on?
Mm.
And I ignored it for a while completely, and it kept coming up, coming up, coming up. And then I finally looked at it and I was like, oh, Well, yes, actually, I think that's a good idea. Let me jump in. And so I
Right.
did. So I have a bunch of things I'm handling right now, more than any sane person would have. But I never claimed to be
Mhm.
sane. So there is that. Um, but yeah, it's a form of magic that really came forward for me. And it was funny, as we were using in the first class that I did, we were
Mhm.
using pendulum to
Right.
make some decisions about qualities of certain crystals. You may think, isn't it already decided? Not necessarily. Some have
Right.
flexibility, shall we say. It
Hmm.
depends on where it came from and how you're using it right now. So if you're
Right.
using it in relation to one of your chakras, for example, does that resonate as an absorbative crystal where it's absorbing the negative
Right.
energy and transmuting it? Is it reflective? What do you need right now? You know, all these things. So pendulums came into the deal, using a pendulum. I was so thrilled and a little surprised that I was thrilled. Like I was just, oh, I
Mm.
haven't used this for it. I was so excited. And we did wonderfully, like made all kinds of responses that worked. Anybody not using a pendulum right now thinks I'm nuts, but
Mm.
if it works for you, and there's no reason why it wouldn't,
Right.
pendulum can be a wonderful tool to help you determine things when answers when you have clear questions.
Yes.
To have clear questions about things. And it was a blast. Like I was having the best time. And I thought, oh. And then I had a couple of questions that came to my mind that I asked the teacher, who was kind of, she actually answered them. She wasn't answering everybody's questions, there were a
Right.
lot of them, but she answered these because they were kind of out of left field. And I didn't know why I was asking them. They just came up to be asked. So this tells me, for me, this is my
Hmm.
metric. This whole synchronicity thing tells me I'm in the right place.
Right.
So for the listener who's now scratching their heads and wondering, how is she allowed out? Well, that's first of all, nobody gets to stop me. But
Right.
secondly, um, it's how it works for me. And Daniel has his way,
Right.
how it works for you to determine. Some people swear by the cards. Actually, I love using cards as well. I'm a big fan. And I will go to the cards that call to me to use them. There's all sorts of tools to play with. But for the crystals, cards don't really do it for me. The pendulum does, though,
Right.
which is fabulous. I'm so happy. Um, it, I know it sounds weird, but it worked. So yeah, that's something else that's going on for me. So
Right.
a way that you can determine what kind of entry do you want into magic. If you're
Yes.
still looking for your entrance, what is it? It could be cards, pendulum, runes, um, mandalas. I've been doing some mandala work as well recently, and that was awesome. So much fun.
Right.
I think I've got them upstairs. Can't show you right now, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I'm glad you
So
brought it
much to
up.
do. We only have a
Yeah.
little time. We got to do it
Right.
all.
I'm glad you brought it up because that's kind of what I wanted to get at, right? The spirit world, one of the things it loves to do if it tells you not to do something is because it has another way for you.
Right.
So when I tell you don't do, if right now maybe don't do magic, it's because there's something in the non-magical that's going to bring you to magic, but you have to be
Right.
open to it. But the spirit world knows when communication is already difficult when it comes to complex wordings and expressions. It's easy to tell someone to duck. It's easy to tell someone to turn in one direction, but it's another thing to like give you a paragraph of information.
Right.
So it's
And
easier to
there are
just push you in that direction than it is to tell you the exact wording that's needed.
and there really are so many different paths and
Right.
and they require different levels of commitment. You
Hmm.
know, if you're using tarot cards, for example, that's one level, but if you're astral traveling, you're on a whole different level, literally, metaphorically, physically. You know, you are doing something that requires much more of you
Mm.
if you're going to astral travel. So if you're doing that, why? Where are you going? What's your purpose? Are you properly protected before you do that?
Right.
You know, like there's so many things. Tarot cards. Are you connected to the cards you're using? Do
That
you
makes a big
have your
difference.
own definition of them? Have you
Mhm.
let somebody else mess with them? And if you have, how are you going to clear them of that person's energy?
Mm.
You might find, you could even ask the AI to give you a clearing spell if you wanted to, and you
Right.
could use it if you like. It would probably
Mhm.
be pretty good. Or you can use your intuition and figure out,
Mhm.
oh, these cards need da 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 da.
Yeah.
What is it? What do they need?
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Uh, like I said before, and I know I told Michaela, and I think I said it on the podcast too, like my pendulum likes to do magic with me, not
Right.
just do information, but like actually one of its favorite parts is to uh, not manipulate the flow, but organize the flow
Hmm.
of energy. So, yeah. So you might find if you're doing tarot or some other card that the cards might want to do something other than just give you information.
And that's 1 second.
Sure. Yeah.
I just told my dogs to fight quietly.
Yeah.
We'll we'll see if they do. But that's the other thing is we just gave two illustrations of how to use a
Mhm.
pendulum that you probably don't find in a book necessarily. Using the pendulum to determine the properties of a given crystal in relation to a question you have is
Right.
not something you come across every day.
No.
Usually people pick them up and say, "Ooh, pretty," but and yes, they are, and that's
Yeah.
lovely. But what else are they?
Right.
And where crystals coming from different parts, you're probably going to hear lots of crystal stuff coming forward
Mm.
from me now as I'm
Right.
learning this. But, crystals can be the same composition, but coming from a different country will have a different quality
Yes.
because the conditions are different,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So, knowing more about where it came from will help you determine how strong that crystal is going to be. So if you're working something with it, if you're using it for healing, for example, then you need to make sure that the one you have is actually the one you want.
Hmm.
It's a good quality. Um, has it got the properties you want? These are all fair questions to ask, and using the pendulum to determine the answers can be very helpful. But that's not what you're doing.
Nope. No, it wants to organize energy. It wants to move it in directions. I'm going to offer this up. When your dogs barked,
Uh-huh.
I got human voices on this side.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, so let's see what it's like in the playback.
That will be interesting. Yeah, they're all getting very feisty and fighty right now. So
Yeah.
that for the listener, they're not angry and fighty, but they're wagging their tails and they're
Right.
just having a general punch up. They may be telling us that we've done.
Yeah, they might be. It is very much a possibility.
I think
Absolutely.
so. I'm getting some
Yeah.
vocals and some big
Right.
action going on behind
Well,
me.
I mean, we are starting to circle around and repeat the same things.
So, okay.
So I think
Yeah.
it's a good time to end here. So, yeah. So listen all the way through the podcast. See if you can hear the human voices I said had showed up when her dogs were barking. And yeah, question. Go research the divinities you believe in. If you believe you're a divinity, find out what that actually means to
Right.
be a divinity. Don't just accept it like as just, well, everyone knows, because no, everyone does not know because the stories have changed over time. Most people don't know the word God comes from another word that means something you can summon to do something for you. Like,
Right. They use it that way though.
yeah, but that's where the word comes from. It's not just like a name, it's a title, first of all. It's a name of a specific phenomena. So yeah, research it. And then we'll get Michaela off the hook there with her dogs.
It's hilarious. They're absolutely losing the plot right now. They've been so good all of them. So fair enough.
All right. So with that said, once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Till next time.
Until next time, I appreciate it.